Hello and welcome to another edition of the Department of Disaster Management's Focus Program. I am your host, Fiona Alexander Smith, Information and Education Manager at the DDM. In this edition, we will turn our attention to hurricanes and what we all need to do to prepare. Each year, the Atlantic hurricane season begins from June 1st until November 30th, and during this time, we observe an increased development of tropical storms and hurricanes. These cyclones are an annual hazard to the BVI and other Caribbean islands, as they bring with them strong winds, heavy or long periods of rainfall, storm surge, and lightning, which can be destructive. But how do hurricanes form? And what factors contribute to their development? This BBC weather report provides answers to those questions.
A hurricane, and the point at which it begins lies deep in Africa. Here, the highlands of Ethiopia. It all starts off with a seed, a ripple high in the atmosphere called an easterly wave. Now, every hurricane season, many of these ripples travel thousands of miles in the direction of the Atlantic, but only a few ever become hurricanes. Not all hurricanes are born this way, but it's a good example of illustrating the point. Now, key ingredients are needed for a hurricane: a cluster of thunderstorms over a warm ocean. The heat from the ocean will be the energy source, and the high levels of moisture in the atmosphere will allow the storm clouds to expand. Now, ideally, any crosswinds present high up or wind shear must also be slight, otherwise the storm clouds will get ripped apart, a bit like a flame of a candle being blown out by a breeze. Now, in this next stage, perhaps 2 days later, strong vertical currents of air here in the centre are building even bigger storms. Air from around the storm is blowing inwards to replace this rising air, and crucially, because our planet rotates, these winds are also rotating. The whole thing is now spinning about a central point, and a tropical depression is born. Now, a few days of drifting, winds in the centre are now circling at gale force. The rain clouds have expanded, the seas are rough, it's powerful enough to be called a tropical storm. And in this example, the tropical storm is heading for a region of the ocean where the sea is especially warm. So warm, in fact, that the storm will be sent into a frenzy of rapid growth. Now, 12 hours later, and the energy released from the ocean has powered up the winds to a critical speed. It's now a hurricane, and seen from space, it resembles a whirlpool of cloud, and in its middle is the eye. It's a relatively small circle of calm weather, typically 30 miles wide. This clearer eye is then surrounded by a ring of fused, towering rainstorms known as the eye wall. It's the most dangerous part. Under the eye wall blow the fastest winds. Within the eye wall, currents of warm air rise violently, fanning outwards at the top. Now, another day later, and a major hurricane has made landfall. Winds around the eye are powerful enough to blow a house away. Now, close to the eye is the peak storm surge. It's a mound of water pushed inland by the wind, topped with high waves. Now, most of the damage may come from the flooding and not necessarily the wind. But soon after landfall, with the energy from the ocean cut off, the eye will collapse, the winds will quickly ease, but the rainstorms may carry on for days before completely running out of steam.
An average Atlantic hurricane season produces 12 named storms, of which 6 become hurricanes, including 3 major hurricanes. Unfortunately, forecasters are not able to predict where hurricanes will make landfall prior to their development. But what they can tell us is how many named storms are likely to develop and how many are expected to become hurricanes. Dr. Jerry Bell, lead seasonal forecaster at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration's NOAA's Climate Prediction Center, said there is a 45% chance that this season will be above normal. In other words, it will be above the average. He provides an overview of this year's predictions.
For 2017, my team and I are predicting that an above normal Atlantic hurricane season is most likely. The Atlantic hurricane season will likely produce a range of 11 to 17 tropical storms, of which 5 to 9 are expected to become hurricanes. 2 to 4 of those are expected to become major hurricanes of Category 3 or higher. We're predicting a 45% chance of an above normal season, a 35% chance of a near normal season, and only about a 20% chance that the season will be below normal. Overall, this outlook reflects the expectation for a weak or non-existent El Nino, near average or above average sea surface temperatures across the main hurricane formation region, and average or weaker than average vertical wind shear in that region. The season could be comparable to last year, which was the most active season since 2012 with 15 named storms. Now, we don't forecast how many storms might make landfall because this far in advance, we really can't predict what atmospheric conditions will be in place to steer the individual storms. Yet, we all know that hurricanes and tropical storms threaten the U.S. every year. Last year, we saw 5 landfalling storms, 2 of which were hurricanes. One of those storms was Hurricane Matthew, which caused $10 billion in U.S. economic losses due to wind and water damage. Matthew also killed 34 people in the United States and another 551 in the Caribbean, making it one of the deadliest Atlantic storms on record. We need to learn from experience with past storms to reduce future deaths and economic losses. 9 out of 10 fatalities associated with hurricanes are drownings due to water from inland flooding and coastal storm surge. And remember that flooding from hurricanes and tropical storms can extend hundreds of miles inland. But with just a few simple steps, you and your family can be prepared to weather any storm this year. First, determine your vulnerability to the many different types of hurricane hazards that can arise. And then update your family evacuation and communication plans. Third, restock your emergency supply kits. And finally, be sure that you have sufficient insurance coverage.
The influencing factors mentioned by Dr. Bell for this year's predictions are a weakening El Nino and an average or weaker than average vertical wind shear. This short clip by the Weather Network's meteorologists Jacqueline Whittle and Dr. Doug Gillum explains why these 2 factors may contribute to hurricane development.
We're going to talk about hurricane season for 2017. Tons of factors go into, forecasting the season as a whole. We're looking at, once again, an El Nino developing. How could that have an impact?
Yeah, so we look at global patterns, but the area that we're often most interested in is the Pacific Ocean near the equator, where ocean water temperatures are now running a little bit warmer than normal. That's indicative of the developing weak, maybe borderline moderate El Nino. Why does that matter? Well, when we have a developing El Nino, what we have noted over history is that in the Atlantic Ocean, that tends to be associated with more wind shear. And wind shear, a limiting factor on development, in particular in the Atlantic Basin. Meanwhile, in the Pacific Basin, it can be more active.
It can be more active. Okay, let's talk about the wind shear. So basically, we've got a hurricane coming along across the Atlantic. It encounters wind shear, gets kind of torn apart, basically.
Right, it really inhibits its development, or it can weaken it. The problem is not every storm is going to encounter heightened shear just because it's in place more often. What we're concerned about is the global pattern that we expect later this summer and into the fall is one that heightens the threat of storms to make landfall. And ocean water temperatures off the southeast coast and in the Gulf are expected to be warmer than normal. So any storm that makes it to this region,
get in, right,
instead of weakening as it comes in to make landfall, it can maintain or even increase intensity. And we really shouldn't be focusing just on total number of storms. It only takes one landfalling storm to make it a high impact season.
More information on this Atlantic hurricane season after this break.
The house was shaking. Then suddenly saw we hear bang, crack, and the roof had gone.
Man, I was so scared, I nearly wet myself.
Only those who have lived it can truly understand the devastating fury of a hurricane's wind.
The house across the road just get up and roll over.
Hurricane force wind. It's a hazard. Hazards. Take control. Reduce your loss. You can hurricane-proof your home. For example, make your roof more wind-resistant by using screws instead of nails in its construction. Find out more about hurricane force winds and other hazards at your local disaster office.
Welcome back to Focus. The 2017 hurricane season is the topic for this edition. Now, no matter what the predictions tell us, for this and every hurricane season, we stress the need for persons in the territory to be prepared. Be ready. Don't let your guard down. That's the message from us at the Department of Disaster Management, and it has been echoed and reinforced by His Excellency the Governor, John Duncan, and Premier, Dr. the Honorable D. Orlando Smith, in their hurricane messages.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Atlantic hurricane season is here again, and with the increased potential for storms and hurricanes from June 1st to November 30th. Hurricanes, defined as intense cyclonic events with winds of at least 74 miles an hour or more, heavy rains and rough seas are a risk in many parts of the world. We have all seen, and some of us might have experienced, instances in which storms, depressions, and trough systems have developed at various times of the year. The hurricane season is a time of greater risk to vulnerable communities and individuals from all walks of life. It is therefore important that we make sure we are ready for this hurricane season and beyond. Early predictions were for a relatively quiet hurricane season this year. However, I would strongly caution against using the hurricane season predictions to inform your decisions on how seriously to prepare. Remember, forecasting is not an exact science. These are simply predictions to guide us. They cannot foretell where hurricane landfall is likely to occur, so I urge each and every one of us to be ready. It took only one major hurricane last year, Hurricane Matthew, to cause devastation in Haiti and severely impact other Caribbean islands. We must therefore ensure we are prepared for the unexpected, which means developing evacuation or emergency plans, checking our households to ensure that loose items which can become projectiles are securely fastened, clearing guts, drains, and roof gutters to reduce the risk of flooding, storing emergency supply kits, and staying aware and informed of what's happening. The Territory is fortunate to have a committed team at the Department of Disaster Management who work diligently to raise awareness about hurricanes and other hazards. I know they will keep us all informed and aware during this current season. This awareness is a critical aspect of preparedness, as we must have reliable and timely information being communicated through our media partners for members of the public to take informed decisions. This is why the media's continued support of our disaster preparedness efforts is so important. I therefore echo the message from the Department of Disaster Management, encouraging all Virgin Islanders, residents and visitors, not to be caught off guard. Be ready and don't let your guard down. Thank you.
My fellow Virgin Islanders, residents and visitors, the 2017 Atlantic hurricane season is here, so I implore you to remain ready for any eventuality. Be ready. Don't let your guard down. My government remains committed to doing all we can to protect lives, reduce loss, and maintain a disaster-resilient territory. But you must also play your part in ensuring your own safety and that of your family and community. We know from past experiences that storms and hurricanes can have devastating and long-lasting effects on our economy, our families, and the territory. However, the losses we suffer as a result of these cyclonic events can be minimized if we plan, prepare, and heed the warnings and messages from disaster management officials. We are often reminded of how destructive these events can be, but the lessons learned allow us to plan better, build better, and develop better. Tropical storms and hurricanes are accompanied by associated hazards such as flooding, landslides, storm surge, and strong winds, which destroy property, livelihoods, and unfortunately lives. Flooding from these weather-related events has been a major issue for the territory over the years due to our topography and low-lying coastlines. But we remain dedicated to finding ways to reduce our vulnerability to these hazards. As it stands, the government of the Virgin Islands has commissioned a hydrology study and flood risk reduction initiative for our town to increase our understanding of flood risks and identify actions to lessen the impact of flooding. We want to be in a position to implement proactive measures which will make the Virgin Islands and its people more resilient to these types of weather-related hazards and ultimately all hazards. But there's also a shared responsibility for each and every one of us to take the necessary steps to prepare for this and future hurricane seasons. I urge you not to use the predictions as a measure or an indication of your level of preparedness. The numbers do not really matter. Preparedness does. I therefore encourage individuals, families, public and private sector organizations to be ready. Have a plan. Have a first aid kit. Know the shelters in your community and assist others in the community who need your help. We also need to avoid actions which exacerbate the hazard impacts. This includes disposing of waste in drains and guts and keeping loose materials around our homes. I take this opportunity to join with the Disaster Management Department in encouraging you to be ready. Don't let your guard down. May we have a safe and uneventful 2017 hurricane season.
We'll be back after these messages.
When the waves swell, the wind blows, and rain starts to pour, you'll ask yourself, how prepared or unprepared are you? Did you board your windows, protect your home? Secure loose objects so they won't blow away. Bring large items in and low items up. If you're properly prepared, it will help in a big way. Does your family have a plan? Do they know what to do? Is your emergency kit packed, waiting by the door for you? Just because you're not on the coast doesn't mean you're okay. Heavy winds and flooding can wash things away. When a hurricane is near, you need to stay safe. Turn on the radio. Wait for updates. Only leave your home if told so. Grab your bag and go, go, go. Now, if you're home and the heavy wind blows, get away from the windows, watch out for flooding, and protect yourself. You may be without power for a couple days, but your emergency kit should help you to stay. Once the storm is gone and it's safe to go home, be cautious of what's going on. If water's in your path, you have to turn back. Dangerous electricity and things you can't see can hurt you very badly. So before the waves swell, the wind blows, and rain starts to pour, get prepared, make a plan, and protect yourself each and every way. America's Prepare-a-thon. Be smart. Take part. Prepare. Get started today. Go to ready.gov/prepare.
Welcome back to Focus. We are encouraging you to be ready this and every hurricane season. So here are some tips to improve your state of readiness. Decide now where you would go if you have to evacuate, especially if you live in low-lying areas or you are unsure about your home's ability to withstand hurricane conditions. Take note of the hurricane shelters in your community. Keep your home and property in good repair. Ensure roof gutters are clear, check your roofs and address any problems, trim trees on your property, check to see where your cistern outflow is being discharged, and take the necessary corrective actions. Make plans and purchase materials to protect your home before the storm. These include plywood, protection windows, plastic sheeting, nails, etc. Purchase a battery-powered radio. Create a home inventory with lists, pictures, or videotape of the contents of your home and store with insurance and title papers in a safe place. If possible, send a copy to a relative out of the area as a backup. Whether you rent or own your own home, review your insurance policies with your agent now. Ensure that you have an emergency supplies kit. Your emergency supplies kit should include the following: water, at least 3 gallons of water per person per day for at least 3 days. This is for drinking and sanitation. At least 2 weeks' supply of non-perishable food. If you have young children, remember to secure sufficient food, diapers, and other essential items for them. Include a manual can opener for food. battery-powered or hand-cranked radio and extra batteries, flashlight and extra batteries, first aid kit, a whistle to signal for help, moist towelettes, wipes, garbage bags and plastic ties for personal sanitation, cell phone with portable chargers, and medications. We have already started to see early tropical storm developments with tropical storms Arlene, Brett, and Cindy, so we encourage you to finalize your preparations now. I am Fiona Alexander Smith, Information and Education Manager at the Department of Disaster Management, reminding you to be ready. Don't let your guard down. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at BVIDDM and our website, bviddm.com, for more advice and messages throughout the season. Join me next time for another edition of Focus on CBN Television.